he was a right-wing orientation, but among other reasons, he wanted to save Germany, to save France from being destroyed by war, especially, Paris. And Paris was such a beautiful town, city. Now, some of the Germans also collaborated with Hitler because they thought that they will save Germany by collaboration. But it turned out that collaboration did not save anything. So, in Poland, now, to collaborate, to form a collaborating government, the Nazis had to find a leader that could organize the collaborating government. But they couldn't find any in Poland. Polish people, no matter if they were left-oriented politically or right-oriented politically, they were equally against Germany, who was an enemy of Poland. And they couldn't find a collaborated with a name that could attract other people to form a collaborating Polish government. And also, they understood that the Polish people all the people were against them. So they organized, after invading Poland, they organized in central Poland, they organized a government, they call it General Government, not Poland, but General Government, short GG. And they named a friend of Hitler, Hans Frank. They nominated him the General Governor of GG. Of course, inside GG, all the administration was Polish by Polish people. However, they had to execute all the orders they were given by the Germans. And the Germans had people who were overseeing the Polish administration. Now, there was part of that Polish administration that took their obligations very strictly in persecuting the Jews. And there were some that they did whatever they told to do, but they tried not to directly hurt individual people. Now, those attitudes were differently interpreted by different people, also among the Jews. The Jews who suffered most, they were accusing everybody of being an anti-Semite. And some of the Jewish people who emigrated, who came or escaped, came to the United States, especially those who came from Eastern Poland, from the most poor parts of Poland, some of them were
Come anytime. I'll just take a break.
were saying that all Poles were anti-Semitic, which is not true. Anyway,
No, well, just donate it.
they
Just,
so the German administration in January and early February of 1941, they expelled, no, they took all the Jews from the ghettos on trucks, and they took them into a camp that was, former Polish army barracks. They took him out of my hometown, and there were some 10,000 Jews. Also, they expelled from Płock some part of the Polish population that was not employed by the German companies. So the 10,000 Jews from my hometown were taken from that camp in groups, about 1,000 people in a group, and they were transferred by railroad into central Poland, into GG. And, for example, my group, my parents and myself and one of my uncles, we were taken to a little town in central Poland that was some almost 100 miles from a main railroad line. My two other uncles were taken to some other little towns in the same area. Now, we were just brought into the town, and the Jewish population who was already in a ghetto in that town, they had to absorb us. So we were So we were accepted by a Jewish couple who was not very poor. The guy had a cart and a horse, and he was working for the German administration, and we were pushed into his apartment. And there was almost starvation. There was a kitchen organized by money that came from the United States, from a Jewish organization that was helping Jews to survive, but the only help they can give was sending money. So they organized kitchen, and one time a day they were cooking soup, and you could come and get a cup of, a bowl of, or whatever, of soup. Now, before even when we lived, before we were expelled from the ghetto in my hometown Płock into the GG, of course the Jews in the ghetto, they were taken every day by the German administration, by the German army, and by the SS. They were taken, mostly people, men who were able to work, they were taken to work outside of the ghetto. And also there was a German administration that was referring to German farmers who lived in that area and they needed slave work. They were sending the Jews from ghetto to work for them. And I was sent to a German farmer who lived back in Poland before Germany occupied Poland. There was a small German minority in Poland, and they were German minority. They called themselves Volksdeutsche. That means German that lived outside of Germany. And that farmer, he did not let, that was kind of a mile away from the center of the town, so the farmer did not let me go every day back to the ghetto, but he let me sleep in the barn and take care of the horses and the cows. So I had to get up early in the morning, 5 o'clock, clean the horses, feed the cows before breakfast and before they went out to work, the horses and cart to work in the field and so on. So at that time I learned to work in the field. I learned to work, to do what a farmer was doing. So when we arrived into the ghetto in central Poland, in Chmielnik, place named Chmielnik. My family, we were starving. We didn't have. Now people who had money and they could somehow hide the money, like gold, like dollars, they could buy things and somehow try to survive. But people who didn't have it or who lost it, or they were robbed because they searched people and they didn't let anybody to take anything of value. So I, in the little town where we were in GG, the center of the town were houses owned by Jews, but they were not, the Germans took over those houses, and the outside was Polish farmers. So a farmer who needed a worker agreed to hire me to work for him in the field for food. So he was feeding me, and also he allowed me to take, after the crop were taken, to take whatever was left on the field. I could take and bring it home for my family. So that's how I was surviving the first months in the ghetto. One day in the ghetto, on the street, a Jewish gentleman approached me and he said, "You don't look like a Jew." So I said, "So what?" And he said, "Maybe you would like to earn some money." I said, "Why not? I could use some money, help my family, feed ourselves, buy food." "Okay, what do you want to do? What do you want me to do for you?" And he said that he owned a leather factory in a town more than 100 miles away from our little town, from our ghetto. And he said that he wanted me to travel to that town. Now I said, how you want me to travel? I will give you a false Polish ID. Now, what that meant, what kind of false Polish ID he could give me. You know, they were stealing forms from the churches where people were born. They were registered by the church, you know, and on forms and a stamp, and they put their names and date of birth and name of parents, and that was it. That was a birth certificate. Now also, in the offices that Polish people were working, but they under German supervision. They had forms in Polish with a photograph. So he said, make a photograph and I'll take your photograph, I'll put it on a form that was stolen, and put an imaginated Polish name and place of birth and date, and you will have a false Polish ID. And the stamp, everything was false. Now that